Hello, good day, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our webinar today. We will give everybody 1 or 2 minutes more to join, but until we do and then start with our introduction, etc., a couple of housekeeping things from our end here. So we will have the first 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, a short conversation on what is Cloud IAM, why we think it's important, why do Klaus and myself here, you see us in the camera, are speaking about it. All around that to give you an indication what's in it, what's the point of this webinar and where we're heading with it. That is also already a good opportunity to start raising questions. You have the opportunity here in the tool and the questions panel to raise questions. Feel free to do so at any time. Right now, you can type in a question if you have one. We will collect all of those and we will have an eye on them. So when it makes sense to discuss them right away during our beginning conversation or later during the presentation, or at the end, the last part will be about a 15 minutes Q&A. We will tackle all of those, hopefully. If we cannot get to all of them, we will make sure to follow up with you, don't worry, so that really all questions get answered. That's our goal here. That's all about that. So hopefully you have those questions in mind. Another thing that's going to happen at 2 points during the webcast, we really want to get your opinion on something. So we will have a short poll. When that happens, I will make you aware of that, and then our video will disappear, and you will see a window coming in front with a poll where you can just click your answer, and then we will see where we are all here in this cast at some point of the presentation. Pretty straightforward, nothing to worry about. Just for you to understand, if our video goes away, that's not your fault. That's just because the poll is coming up, and then once the poll is done, we will be back and we will look at the results here together. So this is the plan for about the next hour, and I hope the majority has joined by now. Even though I see more people popping in, I think it's a good point in time to start our presentation, make a short introduction of ourselves and why we're here. So Klaus, maybe I give you the honor starting and give us an insight on why are we here?
Thank you, Heiko. So yeah, a warm welcome from me as well on that cold winter day. At least here in the Frankfurt area is -3 degrees. So it seems that we get really a winter here. I'm working as a principal identity strategist at SailPoint. And so ICC and we and SailPoint, we thought it would be time to give maybe from a broader view some ideas why cloud is important in those days, why it makes sense to have an identity management system using the cloud. So there are different flavors of cloud, we all know that. So this is what we want to talk about this. We want to give some different angles on that topic, that it helps you maybe find a better way for your own decision or a clear way for your own decision. So questions are welcome. There are no silly questions, only silly answers. We can deliver that as well. But you know what I mean. So feel open. So again, we answer any question, whatever comes over and what comes in your mind and what is moving you in any direction. So people who ask questions, we can help. Who not, we can't. It's that easy.
Well, we will try to help even those who don't ask questions, but it's much harder in that case.
Of course.
Thank you, Klaus. I'm Heiko. I'm Heiko Hütter. As you can see, actually I have 2 roles. One is here on the slide. I'm the CEO of Service Layers, which is a subsidiary of the IC Consult group, where we bundle and focus actually our DevOps and cloud expertise, bringing best of breed IAM solutions into the clouds of our customers. I will talk about only very briefly at the very end of the presentation to learn more. The other hat that I'm having on is I'm responsible for the managed service strategy at IC Consult. And actually, I'm in the IAM field for close to 15 years now. I am speaking about cloud for more than 5 years in the IAM space in different variations. And for me, I think this is a very good opportunity for us together, SailPoint, to talk about a specific phase in your IAM cloud journey where we think is underrated, and that's the kickoff phase. That's the starting phase of your efforts, where you can put in actually a lot of work, and I think you should at least put some considerable amount of work when you start your IAM program moving towards cloud, because you can well steer yourself in a way or in a direction where you maybe are surprised then a year later where you ended up with. I think if you do some things right at the very beginning, you can avoid a couple of challenges that we see actually in the industry quite a lot. So coming from that angle, also speaking maybe a little bit about the partnership before we come to the topic really, that we have between us, some information you can see here on the slides. But Klaus, I find it quite surprising when we had the discussion of what we want to show, what we want to discuss in this presentation. Christina, sorry that she's not here. If you have expected her, she can't make it today. Very sorry. I hope Klaus and myself will be a good substitute for that. But Klaus, a question you get quite often, it seems, is do you have a team in Europe from SailPoint? And as you just said, you're sitting in Frankfurt at the moment. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, indeed we have. So we are growing really fast and quite big, I would say. So the last meeting we had, there were 43 people around that. So a complete mix between SEs, a sales manager and managers and so forth. So the team is really growing and we're looking for more heads on that because there's a lot of work to do. And if you want to go out to customers and talk with customers, you have to have feet on the street. And this is what we're doing at the moment. So the team is growing, but we don't have, so we are working on a centralized office here in Germany, or let's say at least a German speaking office. We have only one, it's not only, we have one in Europe based in London, but we're looking for a direct office in a German speaking office, which is responsible for the DACH region, means for Germany, Switzerland and Austria. And so we're working on that. So we are not sure where this might be located, but yeah, you know, so the management is sitting in Düsseldorf and most of the guys love to be in Munich. So we will see what coming out. So maybe we choose Frankfurt would be nice for me, but I have no idea at the moment. We will see.
No, Munich is a great choice. Our headquarters are in Munich, so I recommend that. But what is funny about the question is we get it the other way around quite often. So when we get asked, can you support us globally as well? Because that's the reality, right? So most of our customers, a couple of our customers you can see also here on the slide, but there are more. Most of our customers really are global companies nowadays, right? And they're spanned across the globe and have offices everywhere. And in some cases, it's really important that you can have the support also wherever you are, right? Independent of are you in Europe, are you in the US, even Asia, where we have offices in India and in China, etc. So quite interesting that you get the question this way and we get it the other way. Also from a footprint, I think we have pretty similar teams over there. But now let's zoom in a little bit more to the topic. So when we talk about cloud, is that SaaS or is it not? Or is it something different? Let's clarify a little bit on our vocabulary we're going to use during the next hour or so. What we really mean when we talk about cloud. So my opinion, right, cloud is the big word, and basically whatever you do in the cloud is cloud, yeah. And that can be SaaS, or in our industry, we like to call that more IDaaS, right? Identity as a service. But what we mean is actually software as a service, right from that perspective. But actually, I mean, what you can do is, I mean, you can take your VMware installation and your VMs that you have run in your ESXi stuff a decade ago and move that towards a cloud provider. And yes, you are then in the cloud as well. That's also working, right? And that's also cloud. And there are many solutions in between, right? If you do a proper lift and shift where you really take advantage of the capabilities the cloud brings to the table, etc., then you are somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. And all of that is cloud. But I try to be precise when I talk about cloud. I mean all of this. When I talk about IDaaS, I will mean specific, right? Going for a cloud native IDaaS solution, where actually, you know, the vendor takes all the responsibility, right? SailPoint takes all the responsibility of operating the environment, of updating, upgrading it, all of that. Anything important I did forget?
Yeah, so Heiko, So what I often told guys, so if you are long enough in IT, you can remember that we have host systems decades ago. And there was a time when these host systems are split in dedicated server environments. And this was a shift this was a paradigm shift what we have in there. So things are running different. You have to have other programs. Programs are differently designed and things like that. And at the moment, we have the same paradigm shift when we're talking about cloud and about on-prem software which is running in the cloud. So there is a difference between a cloud software and software in the cloud. And it often helps how to clarify that when we talk about architecture. So one thing is a big block on data or program which you have running against a database, and a pure cloud solution have multi-tenants, have multi-microsystems, microservices which are running on that, and this is the software which is delivered. So this is a totally different approach in architecture, and this might be makes it a little bit clearer why it is important to talk about a real cloud application, which is normally named as SaaS. Sometimes that helps a bit to see that from a architecture prospect.
Okay, that's very good. So we established, right, it can even start with a vocabulary that 5 people talking about cloud, and all of those 5 people mean totally different things. What are other challenges that you see talking to your customers when they start adopting the cloud for themselves, especially in the IAM industry, of course?
So you mean me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, so at least in Germany, we have a really, I shouldn't say system. So a lot of customers have what they called a first cloud strategy, but that's nice to have that, and I love the idea to have a cloud strategy. But when we talk about cloud, so the most let's say reason to go to cloud is to have standards. They know that it's easier to stay on standards if you have a cloud software like Salesforce.com, for example. Yeah, you can't change so much in that, but it's a pure cloud system. And this is, I think, the need to have standards inside of the company. But it doesn't make sense if customers said, well, we need standards, but we are different. So this is a little bit like wash me, but don't get me wet. So the idea behind that is, yeah, you can have standards, that's possible, but you have to choose which of your processes you could change or will change or have to be changed. So the clarification, to be clear what I want to achieve with this cloud journey, that must be very clear. And I think the takeaways are very good to read here.
Okay, yeah. So maybe to add to that is a very fair point. So you said it, wash me but don't get me wet, right? Many times we see, for example, the CIO has taken the decision, we have a cloud first strategy. All applications need to be in the cloud by date X, right? And then nobody really cares what is actually the value proposition to go there, and is there actually a benefit, and what is the benefit, etc. And then there are those customers who really say, okay, I just want to get the check mark, right, and to get it done to fit to the strategy without going the full Monty and doing the proper analysis of the business value and all of that. And then your whole organization is not, you feel really the whole organization is not committed towards that goal moving into the cloud. So that is, to me, something that I see still, and that's interesting to me since, as I said, right, I'm talking about this topic since 5 years, maybe longer, moving to the cloud, and still we have these customers, right, where right, it's they are very, very early in the stage. There's not a lot of maturity. We even have customers still today where the IAM system is the first one that they bring to the cloud. So the whole organization is not a lot of maturity in terms of, okay, how does this work for us? And it starts with challenges like, okay, in the cloud, you typically have a pay-per-use model. Many organizations are not ready to have that in their budgeting process. Right? Even these things are sometimes challenging in the very beginning. And it's interesting if you come across that in your, IAM program. All of that can happen. So we think it makes sense to really take a 4-step approach when you're adopting the cloud. And this is not a time where you see now the first poll, because we want to really see where are you at the moment in your adoption, in your cloud adoption journey. Are you all in the very first phase? And you should see that now on your screen. where you think about, okay, what's the business value of going to the cloud for my organization, and what's the business value of IAM in my organization overall? Or are you already in the target definition where you want to be in 1 year, 5 years with your IAM program? Really, do you have maybe as step 3 already a roadmap how you want to go to the cloud and the steps in between, right? Or is all of that already done? Your deployment is clarified and you're actually ready for implementation. I'd be very interested. So please just click the step and we'll give you a minute or so to do so that we know actually, where to put an emphasis over the next couple of minutes to talk about more. So just out of curiosity, Klaus, when you talk to customers, what would you think, in which phase are they most of the time?
Well, yeah, it depends a little bit on, so I would say it depends on to which you are speaking. So if you talk to the guys which really know that an identity management system brings value to the company and how it brings value to the company, you are pretty soon in a planned roadmap, more or less, but not with any technology behind that. If you ask people in the departments which are responsible for processes, they are still on business value analysis, they are still on target definition. So we built a maturity assessment for our customers, which can answer their own questions on our website. We call this Horizon 1 to 5. And we found that the most of our customers are, or the prospects at least, are in Horizon 2 or 3. So this is where you found the most of the customers. This is not very mature, so they are still on the very edge on beginning something or journey something. So this is, I would say, really surprising, because this business is out for more than 20 years and we are still in the very beginning. Well, this surprises me every time when I see that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we close the poll for now and look at the results here and see if that matches. Okay, very interesting.
Target definition, yeah.
Majority in the target definition, which is good. I mean, to see a good spread here is for me a surprise, a very positive surprise. To tell you, my experience is many times, but that is not representative, right? This is my personal experience. But my personal experience is when I'm talking to customers, they're typically thinking they're in phase 4. But really, when you then ask, for example, they start discussing directly, does identity now have feature X, Y, Z? And when you then try to understand the requirement deeper and ask, okay, what is exactly the value you hope for when you're adopting this feature, so that I can tell you whether that makes sense for you, or help you in analyzing that, then you really find out, okay, a proper business value analysis has not been done. So I'm positively surprised to see that here our audience is really thinking about these different phases. And it's also good that we have the majority in the target definition. I'm a bit surprised about deployment clarified and ready for implementation. I would be very interested what your guys are doing here today. But maybe you can give us that as a kind of answer, or in the questions tab. That would be interesting as well to see. Okay, so without further ado, let's hop into the presentation a little bit. And Klaus, like you just said, in whenever I try to forget or forget something. Looking at these takeaways, I gave you a sneak peek already before, because I really think these 4 steps, if you only take something with you out of this webcast, then please take this with you. Make sure you tick the boxes on all 4 of these pillars, of these takeaways, to really make sure you're steering into the right direction. And the main reason is what I already dipped into a little bit. In the very beginning of your cloud journey, you really set path. You set the direction in which you are going. And if you don't really know where you want to be and how do you fit into the strategy of your whole organization, then actually looking back a year later can really place you in a position that is very surprising for you. And that goes a long way. That goes what Klaus already said a little bit into, okay, how do we design our processes? How far are we ready to say, okay, let's take the standard that is in the IDaaS offering that we have decided for, or is our organization not ready? to really say, okay, let's go standard. We still need to customize really every single detail everywhere, and are not happy with that, right? Are you ready for that step? All of these steps in between are quite important. To elaborate a little bit more, we from IC Consult, we have 3 pillars on how we think we can help you best in setting this up properly. But these are only examples. As Klaus already said, right? Vendors like SailPoint have good material to help you really steering this properly, like this Horizon self-evaluation. You have from Gartner, from Kupping & Cole, good material on that. So you don't need to rely on us, but I think it's a good choice, of course, if you do. So from our perspective, we have designed these packages to help our customers going to the cloud in a structured approach. And by the way, structured does not mean non-agile. You can be to some extent agile, of course, right? But we still think, especially in IAM, just to get this whole discussion a little bit out of the way, you will have a program. Many call it a project, even though it's running for ever. But you will have a program with a lot of dependencies with many stakeholders. So if you don't manage those dependencies in a proper way, and just going week by week or a 2-week sprint or whatever, right, you will find yourself in a difficult time overall. I mean, you can do something in between, but some proper planning is I think a good choice here. So these 3 pillars. Let's talk about the first one here, which is our IAM cloud assessment. And this is basically what we have done for bringing hundreds of customers actually in the clouds already. And we have here this cloud from Sergey, which is who is our practice lead business consulting, who really has analyzed a lot of these projects and especially analyzed which ones are considered a success or which ones are considered even an excellent success and which ones are maybe not in that category. And we see that most of the time, almost everywhere, there's a very strong correlation between, okay, customers have done this exercise in the beginning extensively and really understood where they are and took a good approach towards that, and customers who just got started somewhere without this proper analysis. So we think it really makes sense. And I mean, the better you do it, the easier it is to also gain the approval for your IAM program, right, or for the next step in your IAM program, whatever it may be. And then as a next step, have the planning of your phases, deliverables, etc. And hopefully in the end, of course, running a successful program overall. And both parts of this quote are essential, in my opinion. The one is the readiness assessment, to understand where your organization currently is. So not only where you want to be, but where you are really right now. And the funny thing is, maybe that's a cultural thing, but especially here in Europe, what I see is when you look at your existing IAM system, and almost any organization has one already, right? You're not starting from scratch, having nothing at all. I have never seen that. So when you analyze your system, we are very good in criticizing and saying, this is not working, that is not working. We are very unhappy with that, right? You know these things very well because you get all the incidents all the time. But of course, please have a look at also the things that are working good, because you definitely want to replicate those in your new system or your cloud system as well, and make sure that you don't lose those, right? And that's something that we see very often. You focus totally on, we need to fix all of these things, but actually we have not spent a lot of time understanding what we already do pretty good. Chances are there are smart people working on your IAM system for many years, and they have a ton of knowledge about processes, the technology, and all of that. Make sure to reuse that when you really go for the next step for your cloud journey. And in this cloud assessment, what we do is by taking the full step, really from your vision, how you fit in your strategy, in your global company strategy, your CIO strategy, etc. Take that as a basis for a roadmap. And this is easier said than done. As I said, right, you will have a ton of dependencies everywhere. So planning really from the needs that your organization has towards your goal is very important, especially managing those dependencies. And only then, after you have an understanding, the decision on the architecture really makes sense. If you have not nailed 1 and 2, then I mean, you will just take an architecture because whatever reason, right? Without a good foundation for that. And this is the goal for some of the packages that we have. So we have these, we call these IAM Cloud Assessment packages, and depending on where you are, we have a very structured approach. So when you're looking at a customer CM system, for example, that's one package. If you look at workforce scenario X with a mostly greenfield approach, that's scenario Y, and so on and so forth. But the goal is, and as I said before, right, you can do this on yourself, but make sure that you really have a good high-level recommendation already when you start this journey and understand why you have that. And that should be more than just 5 slides on a presentation, why you decide for that solution. Have a proper roadmap that gives you the transition plan. And to be honest, when we see the cloud adoption, another challenge that comes across quite often is every application saying, we don't want to be the guinea pig. We don't want to integrate first. Why are you talking to us first, right? And they're a roadmap that has also the justification in, okay, the reason we're tackling these set of applications first and have this provisioning scenario first and implementing these workflows first in the cloud really helps you getting to your organization and getting everybody buying in. And then last but not least, always important, people caring about cost. So having a proper TCO also can help you a long way. Just a few words on how do we do that. So what we've done is we've created a maturity model where we really analyze from a process map and a process view all the different aspects that you have around IAM these days in the cloud environment and for the cloud environments. And of course, everybody says, I want to be 5-star in every single aspect of my IAM system, but nobody does. Nobody is there actually. I do not know any single customer who does that, and it would also not make sense, right? And there again, it is very important. If you have understood what the business value is for your organization of IAM, then it's easy to answer. Okay, actually, provisioning logic X is very important for us for X, Y, Z reason. And only then you can really say, okay, this is the maturity we want to achieve in our scenario here. So this is the approach we're taking. Sometimes customers say, no, we already have started, and we have seen right in the poll before, a couple of you are in the target definition, so that's still fine, but a couple are already in the last phase. They say, okay, we're ready for implementation, but actually maybe you recognize now, maybe there are still some gaps. Then this is not the perfect solution, but we still have a kind of emergency concept if that is done to make up for it, at least to some extent. If you already have started. So this is then only a single workshop that we do to get you these high-level assessment scenarios and review your current solution, etc. Very, very quickly to at least have the high-level understanding of everything. Again, not the recommended approach, but in some cases, even that can be necessary and done. So this is talking about the setup of your whole scenario. Let me just check the time for a second. Okay, I need to speed up a little bit, but I will do. Second pillar is what we call our IAM Cloud Ops, so fully managed service. And now we're talking about one aspect of cloud, which is identity as a service. So Identity Now, for example. When you look at this, we think it makes sense also from the start, from the get-go of the implementation phase, to also really think about how do we adopt this in our organization to get the most value out of that. And there are some aspects that sometimes get overlooked in that context, right? There is a ton of value in going for an IDaaS, bringing to the table, and actually the value expands the longer that you use it, right? Every day you will have new features coming in without you needing to do anything. But what we see is you look at your scenario, look at your roadmap, you implement that, and then once you have achieved milestone X, you're just happy and you're continuing to go and don't look at it anymore, right? And then a couple of years later, somebody's coming and saying, hey, I have these new requirements, and maybe you are implementing them, the new requirements. But many IAM programs are outside driven. So outside stakeholders are coming to the IAM program saying, we need this. Can we implement this? Even though your IDaaS has that already as a feature for years, and you could be proactive about it. You could reach out to your application owners, to your developer teams, to whomever, right? And enabling them and providing more features to them. And that changes a lot. If you are that part of the organization, that changes a lot about the perspective on the whole solution, on your team, on the IAM program team, etc. So this is what we have built to work together with IDaaS to cover actually from your help desk that you will have in your organization to the point where the system is running, and also helping you making sure that you constantly leverage the new features that are coming in your organization. Because typically for many customers that we have understood, right, where you are, what your value proposition is, what your business value is, so we can bridge that gap or help you bridge that gap together with you. So yeah, that's then a second pillar, how we help a lot of our customers here when they go for IDaaS. Then only very quickly, the last scenario. There are still some customers who say, well, we have a cloud-first strategy, we have to move to the cloud, but we can't go for IDaaS. And before I go more deeply into that, just to put it out there, I'm absolutely convinced today that the vast majority of all customers would make a smart decision going for IDaaS. There are only a few and rare reasons where it's a smart decision to not moving into an IDaaS solution overall. But for some customers, let's say, what could those scenarios be? Let's say you just have bought a big license deal. So you have now in your TCO, in your budgets, the system you have paid for the licenses, you want to move on. Could be one reason, right? You are in a situation where your organization is not mature enough to really go for an IDaaS, right? Your architecture, your technology is not ready for it to bridge that gap, really. Maybe, right, you cannot, because you're in a very highly regulated market, insurance, banking, whatever it may be, and have some risks there that can't be covered and prevent you from going into IDaaS. So these very special cases, right, there it could make sense when you still want to go into the cloud environment or in a cloud environment. This is where this model, service layers, this platform that we designed for, really helps you with. And it does this because we have done that for many large-scale customers all across the globe already. And what we've done is actually, in this case here, for SailPoint, we have packaged IQ together with a ton of infrastructure as code. And actually in IAM, the complexities and configuration is code, not so much into infrastructure, and also not so much in managing code overall, but in really managing your configuration in a proper manner to leverage the cloud in a good way. And this is what you can get from us. So you don't need to start from scratch on your own and consume it in a way that it is as a service. So you still can have a pay-per-use model in that context, etc. So that is an option in case there is a reason why you wouldn't go for identity as a service overall, and get that prepackaged solution. Looking at the time, Klaus, what did I forget?
Well, I'm not sure if everybody is aware that there is a difference between a cloud application and an application in the cloud. And it seems a little bit mixed if you're talking only about IDaaS. So I want to make clear, so SailPoint knows both of these sides. So we have a pure cloud application and we have an on-prem application which you can run in the cloud. It's, as you said, it's dependent on the maturity of the company. It's how they want to get loose, the control they want to have over the software, things like that. So we totally agree with that. Our connectors are since decades ready for the cloud. So we have breaking points where we can set up again. So if we read a system in, we aggregate the accounts, we don't have to start again if internet goes away for a second, things like that. So we are ready to do this already. But again, there is a difference between a pure cloud application and an application running in the cloud. If you're doing that, you have the same problems as you have in your own data center, but just on another PC. Yeah, so there are SLRs, of course, for that, but you have to make updates and things like that, which is not doable or not necessary if you have a pure cloud application. So in terms of operations, I like to make this very clear because there is a difference in there in between. That's the only thing, and so otherwise I would say that's absolutely, I can agree with that. What you're saying, we're doing the same things in maturity assessments and things like that, just to give the customer an idea where they are, to identify their current state and validate their current state, that they from that point they can start their journey to the cloud, however that looks like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, yeah, I was just assuming that our audience already knows knows the difference, but it's a very good point to really make that clear on that terms. That's a good point to remember, all of you, to the question section. Right, put in your questions that you may have. I see the first ones are coming in here already. Let me find the tab here. So where do we have it? There. Sorry, too many windows on the screen. Common problem for me. So the first question here is, what would you recommend to do first, applications or IAM systems? And I'm assuming this is about, okay, moving to the cloud. Do you want to start, Klaus, before I chip in?
So which applications first to the cloud? Is that the question?
So how I read it, it says here apps or the IAM system. So I'm assuming the question is around what is smarter. Should you move first your applications into the cloud and then your IAM system, or vice versa?
Well, if you ask me, I'm from SailPoint. Of course, the IAM system has to be first in the cloud. What do you think? And so it depends a little bit on how the application is behavior. So if you're talking about to take an on-prem application and bring it in a Docker or whatever, or run this in a cloud on an Azure box or on an AWS box, whatever you mean, this is one thing what you can do. And this doesn't change so much at the end. Beside that you don't have to care about the hardware anymore. So this is nice, driving in the cloud. And identity management in the cloud gives you a little bit more freedom when it comes to who cares about that thing. So again, not have an on-prem software moving to the cloud, but having a real SaaS application. So this helps a little bit to make things easier to concentrate on that what you really want. So for the IAM system, which is running in the cloud, a pure cloud application, a SaaS system, it doesn't care if this is a cloud application. So SailPoint at the moment, we're sitting on around 15, I think 15 or 18 pure cloud connectors, means we're connecting direct our IAM system with a cloud, with other applications like DocuSign, etc. So we're going more and more in this direction. But we can, of course, also connect all the on-premise systems. So this is still there. So we have over 100 connectors for that. That's not the point. But I would say there is not a real dependency. I would say this is related on the processes, on the urgent you have. Yeah, if you have to drive everything to the cloud, and there might be a certain date where you must be ready, then maybe the IAM system is the last one you would take to the cloud. So you start with your applications. But again, this is totally dependent on the processes and on the pressure you have. There is no good, I would say, no good reason doing this first or this last. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I absolutely second that. And I think it's a very hypothetical question. I would be extremely surprised if you have the power to decide that, whomever you are, right? I mean, even if you're the CIO, I would be surprised if you take that decision on your own. And the reason is, right, if you're talking about a cloud strategy that gets rolled out, then up from that point on, the organization starts using things. And actually, during the time that you will need bringing your IAM system to the cloud, the first applications will maybe overtake you because they're just smaller, less complex, whatever is maybe the reason. But even if you are starting first, maybe other applications are then already in the cloud. Right. So, and then it's a constant process also, right? You will never be in a situation where not new applications are coming, needed to be integrated, etc. So from that perspective, I would say it's very hypothetical. And exactly as Klaus said, it's actually an independent question. I think it's a good question to ask yourself, are you ready to bring your IAM into the cloud? And that's mainly independent of the application stack around you. Still, when looking at your feature set and the capabilities, etc., that you want to have for your cloud IAM, from that perspective, it can make sense to evaluate, okay, how many applications do you already have in the cloud? Maybe they have a set of different requirements in today's world than your legacy system Zs have that maybe are still integrated or whatever it may be. Right? So it makes sense to look at those, but I don't think those are a good driver for the decision when to move your IAM system to the cloud overall. Yeah. Another question, interesting. It says, how is AI related to cloud IAM? And do you think you need AI today?
Clear answer, yes, you do. And the reason is not why it's fancy to have AI in place. So yeah, it might be one of the buzzwords for this year that you have AI in place. But believe me, so what we learned, so modern enterprises have so much applications running, and with applications, they're coming entitlements and accounts. And this is so amount of accounts and entitlements which you have to care about. For human being, it's not longer doable in a reasonable time to look for a real good role setup, for example, role management setup or role model setup, to care about all the applications which have to be aggregated into the system, build certifications from that or SODs, policies for that. So you need the help from the technology behind that, and this is AI. But AI is not AI; it's the same thing. So it's a buzzword what we see. So AI is not different SQL statements where you ask a database, give me some information. This is not AI. AI is something which costs a lot of CPU and a lot of memory to working on that. So we're talking about machine learning. So this is nothing what takes over the company in 2 years. Yeah, we are not on metrics. So this is just helping you finding out. So for example, if you build a role model, that's nice, and you're already with that, and you think you're already with that. But you have to reshape this role model, I would say, every quarter or every half year at least, because your company is changing. So the accesses are changing. And if you're not doing that, you will have an inflation of roles, because there is new access. Someone asks, well, where should I put this access in? Nobody has a clue about. Make a new role, put it to the user, and you're good to go. This leads to that in a few months or in a few years, your users will not have the more desired have from around 10 roles per user. They maybe have 50 or 100 roles per user, which make it which is not longer doable to have overseen the access of those guys. So you need AI for that. That AI tells you, look, I found similar entitlements to similar users. It makes sense to put this entitlement in this role to sharpen your role model. And this is doing this thing day after day for you automatically, permanently. So this is a totally different way to sharpen your role model again and again and again. So AI helps you a lot with that. Or for example, the recommendations in certifications, just to say, well, it makes sense to revoke this right. Again, keep in mind, certifications are not there to rubber stamp them, to say, well, everything is good, I changed nothing, so everything should work again, or should like it is before. So the idea with certifications is that you can say, well, this right or this entitlement has to be not longer on this guy in terms of have a least rights management. Yeah, so you have to revoke some rights. And if you have recommendations from an engine which tells you, look, only 2% of this peer group have this right, so maybe it makes sense to revoke that, or things like that, that helps a lot to make good decisions. So yeah, AI is, I would say, absolutely necessary in modern AI systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe the question is also a little influenced about, ChatGPT coming out last week, and now the whole internet is going crazy, and the AI community is going crazy around that. So I'm also convinced, right, that also in our industry, right, we will see big steps in the next year around that. Well, how is it related to cloud was also in the question. And I think one point you've made already, Klaus, is very important, right? To develop these models, to run these models properly, that's very, very GPU and CPU heavy. And you typically need systems that you don't have on premises. And I would say the number of companies who have the capability to really do that themselves and operate it themselves is ignorable, right?
Yeah, but if you see this from a money perspective, that doesn't make sense at all, because this is a breathing thing. So if you're talking about AI, it's going and going. So it has to do something. It blows up what it need, and it shrinks down on maybe on night times or things like that. So this is the breathing thing, and it has to react very quickly. Yeah, you can do this in your own data center, but that's not worth the money, I would say. and nobody has to be proud to sitting on 40 tons of steel. So this is not the sense behind that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And that's, I mean, that's the reason we're seeing these AI adoptions, right? Typically entangled with a SaaS offering or right being connected. Even if you're still running your IAM on premises, you would typically find yourself reusing then the AI component from the cloud somewhere. Because having that on premises, it really does not make sense.
So, correct. So we offer the AI service for our on-prem customers as well, but it's still cloud related. So it doesn't make sense to bring this down in an on-prem version. That doesn't work. Doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Complexity is really high to operate that.
Correct.
And, also the usage is very, very high. So are there any more questions? I'm checking.
Don't we have any poll anymore?
Oh yes, good point. So let's have another poll. Let's see what we have there. Manu, who's helping in the background, maybe you can fire up our poll number 2. So how would you rate the maturity of your business environment with regard to the topic of cloud? So maybe rate yourself. Our organization has little expertise, medium expertise, very good expertise. Or maybe you're saying, what is this on-prem those guys are talking about? So let's see. And let's have in mind how the spread was with the last question. I'd be very, very interested to compare those two then. It probably will give us a indication, where the IAM system sits, and gives us a pointer to the first question we got.
A few years ago, we have in America, indeed, we have the first customer who told us, well, guys, you're welcome, but if you offer me an on-prem software, you can immediately turn around and go through the door. We are not interested in on-prem anymore. So this is a few years ago, and this shows how far away or how far before us the Eastern states are comparing to us. So we'll really be surprised if someone is on that, maybe for a joke, but not for real reason.
Absolutely, yeah, totally agree.
So in the German-speaking space here in Europe, I think the fear to lose control over things which we are running or which we are owning, this is maybe more a psychological problem more than maybe a technology problem. I don't know, but I think the loss of control, this is one of the things why the most of the guys are not really happy when it comes to cloud. As long as it's a bucket in the cloud, or let's say so a free bucket or a system, a machine which you run in the cloud like a Docker container, this is a far away server, but you can control it. Yeah, you can switch it off and on. But a real cloud solution, you can't switch off, and it makes the people nervous.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure a cultural thing. And the same thing, I mean, it happened and still happens with the cloud adoption, comparing the US, for example, and also Europe, right? And it again happens now with AI, where we also see, right, comparing our customers across the globe, right? We're really in the US, they're much faster, and then a couple of years later, Europe catches up on that. Can we see the results, please, of the poll? Should have them now. Okay, interesting. So nobody's really saying, okay, on-prem, I don't know anymore what that is. And a very 30% spread across little, medium to good expertise, with a slight tendency towards good and medium. So
that don't surprise me, because everyone has cloud experience, of course. So everyone is using cloud, at least Azure cloud, for example, but most of them are using 2 clouds or more. So at least 2, I would say. So most what I find is Azure and AWS. But and this leads to a little bit of experience, and then depending on the audience you ask, you get more or less experience with that. But they know cloud very well, but only, I would say, from an infrastructure perspective.
Yeah, but what is interesting, right? We have actually a third saying we only have little experience. still today,
Yeah.
right? So I think the situation is improving. Remembering a similar webinar I've done a year ago, we actually had more 60% saying we have only little experience. So it seems to be improving overall, which is really good.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely, that's true. So remember, 4 years ago, when you're talking about cloud, you only get question marks against you. What are you talking about? But nowadays, cloud is in every mouth. So everybody has a cloud strategy, more or less, or a cloud first strategy in place. So yeah, that's changed dramatically. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good it's a good tendency, but still, it also means that there is still a lot to do, right? Especially for the people being in the we only have little experience with cloud overall in our organization. But I only briefly got into that at the beginning when we started the conversation, where I said, right, there are a lot of things that your organization has also to learn to adopt when moving to the cloud. Really starting from, okay, what is this pay per use and how can we make this work in our accounting and stuff like that, right? Over the IT department, because your requirements do not go away, right? If you're moving to the cloud, you just don't get rid of all these questions that your security department asks you, that your ISO certification teams ask you, and all of that. I mean, all of that stays exactly the same, but the answers are different. So if you are amongst the very first of applications moving to the cloud, be prepared and figure that into your effort. That's going to happen. Yeah.
And this will come more and more, as you see. So SAP will drive, and SAP and Microsoft will drive the people to the cloud. So the offerings from cloud and what to do in the cloud gets more and more only cloud only, if you so to speak. Yeah. So I think this is what we will have more or less, that we will more and more talk about cloud and how cloud can be adopted to us or in the systems.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And maybe let's do the last poll and get into a little bit about security concerns around IAM and the cloud, which typically come up as well. So if you can give us the last poll directly, so we can have a look at that. So our last poll, to get an insight and also for you an insight about your peer group here. Is there any program aligned with your business strategies that is understood? Oh, okay. There is a small typo. Okay, let's take the question as it is, because otherwise it would be confusing. I had in mind that our last poll would be with your security strategy, but let's have the business strategy here now. So, is IAM in focus in your global business strategy? Yes or no? Very strong focus or no focus at all? Is your top management aware of IAM? That is how you can read that question as well. Okay, maybe let's make it a little bit shorter.
And Heiko, so I saw some questions. So I saw some questions here. I'm not sure if we answer all the questions. So after the poll, we should care about that. So there is one question which asking for SailPoint roadmap for cloud. Maybe I can answer that a little bit. There's a question who asking for MFA secure manufacturing locations when mobile devices are not allowed. Maybe we have to clarify what MFA, so multi-factor authentication, really means. And
sure.
One, how to mitigate from a premise domain controllers to Azure AD joint ventures. Well, this is a very precise technical question. Maybe someone else can answer that afterwards. Makes sense.
No, I slipped over that. So very briefly, let's have a look at the poll, just so I see the numbers, since I'm just so curious, and then we hop on those questions again. Oh, that is very good. That is surprising to me. So right, only 8% say IAM is not in focus for our overall business strategy. Also, that absolutely improvement. If I compare that to last year or 2 years before, that is a very, very good tendency. Good for us all, for our industry, right? For everyone in the identity business. I think it's the right direction. I think it should have been in that way for a long time. But now with all the cybersecurity discussions, I think it gets the attention it should have. That's great. Okay, sorry for overlooking the question. Let's hop on those. Yeah, and let's maybe start with I'm looking for a SailPoint roadmap for cloud. Maybe Klaus, you can take that one, please.
Yeah, of course. So we have, of course, a roadmap for that. So maybe it's the easiest way to ping me up directly after that. So we can set up a meeting to talk about that. So we have a clear roadmap as well. So if you are already sitting on an on-prem solution from us, we have also ways how to make you hybrid or things like that. So as you see, ICC is able to deliver something in that. So it's not a big thing to bring our on-prem product to a cloud vendor and say, well, do these things for me. There might be a very precise SLR in place, of course, but then you get this stuff rid of have your own operations on that and can concentrate on the configuration. And we have as well a way how to move from an on-prem solution, or let's say an on-prem architecture, to a cloud architecture, which is a little bit different. Yeah, and they have to recognize that in different ways. So we have that in place, of course. So it's not really a secret. So just ping me, and we can talk about that. So it's not a big thing. So I hope that helps to make this clarified. But I think it goes too far to answer this question precisely here. But we have that roadmap, of course. Okay. So the next question was how. Okay,
sorry, to add, just because the last part of the question is really any solution which is scalable with multiple. I read there cloud service providers. I hope that is what you mean. And integrations for hybrid setup. It's abbreviated as CSPs. That's why I'm asking. That was exactly what I was talking about with service layers, right? Exactly. I mean, we're setting on Kubernetes, so we can put your SailPoint IAQ that you may have, or a new one that you want to get, right on any cloud provider that's out there, on any big cloud provider. Maybe there are some very rare small ones who not have a Kubernetes, but
from the vendor side,
AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, all of them have a Kubernetes, and we can run wherever we find the Kubernetes. And we have customers. I mean, we talked about cloud strategy now a couple of times as cloud first mainly strategy, but I mean, cloud strategy can be far bigger. We have even customers who have a multi-cloud strategy, deliberately saying we want to have our application spread across the different clouds. Many customers do that actually these days, also for cost reasons and others. And also these scenarios are supported by our platform, and actually that's what it's designed for. Just to put it out there. So you feel free. You can ping Klaus, you can ping me. We're glad to help you to get into that more deeply. So yeah, sorry for interrupting. Let's take the next question.
Well, we can do this meeting together, no problems. I show the roadmap, and you give your ideas how to have with multi CSPs and how we can do that. So from the vendor side, I can promise you, SailPoint can run in any cloud environment. So the on-prem solution, at least. Yeah. So the SaaS solution is bound to a cloud provider because we are heavily sitting on the stack, which is provided to us because of high availability and scalability and all those things. This is not easily doing in each or in different cloud providers, but the on-prem solution could be easily run on any cloud provider. Okay, so the next question was, how can we enforce MFA in secure manufacturing locations where mobile devices are not allowed? So, well, should I? So multi-factor authentication means something you know, this is your password, and something what you have. This could be your mobile phone, but this could also be a token, something like that, a UV token or something like that, whatever what you have. So there are different ways how to fulfill a multi-factor authentication. So there are, I would say, basic protocols which are supported from each or every multi-factor authentication you might have. So I think it's not bound on mobile devices if you want to use to double or to certify a password in that. So you can have different ways how to fulfill multi-factor authentication, I would say.
It is a bit of a tricky question. It really depends a little bit on how you read it and what do you consider a mobile device to be. As Klaus said, right, there are three types of factors around authentication: what you know, what you have, and who you are. Right, is the third factor. And typically what you have should be something that is only in your possession, that you have with you. So we can think about smart card scenarios. We can think about YubiKeys. We can think about a lot of things, but the tricky part is of what you have. You must be in control and in possession of that thing, whatever that is. right? And if you say no mobile devices, you can also read that in terms of, okay, you're not allowed to bring something in. And these scenarios exist also, right? If you think about chip manufacturing and stuff like that, then you can't bring anything. So I would say this is a rare case. Also would recommend let's have a follow-up on that, since I would not expect that the whole broad audience we have here today is facing the same problem. But what I can guarantee, I mean, there are solutions out there. There are a lot of solutions. There are even some very, very small vendors specializing in exactly that small piece of delivering you that. So yeah, we can definitely have a follow-up on that. But that is, I mean, definitely not cloud related in that context then. Yeah.
No. And we have a third question. Maybe you can jump on that. So we're running out of time, I know. So the question is how to migrate from a on-prem domain controller to Azure AD joint devices, especially when we don't have alternate solutions for GPO enforcement and infrastructure servers tier 2 and 3. Applications have core dependencies on local DC joint systems. Well, this is very special, I would say. So maybe it makes sense to ping this guy again with some more technical background to answer that question. This seems to me like a very detailed problem to solve. This has nothing to do with identity management, I would say.
It has to do with identity management, but in the Microsoft area. But we will make sure, you know what, we will make sure that one of our Microsoft experts will reach out and try to help you there with that question. But also there, I don't think that's valuable for the majority here in our context. So since I know we're over time, I want to really thank you for taking the time in the busy December. The time between the years is coming up. So we highly appreciate your time sharing with us. I hope we tackled most of your questions. In case something comes up in the next hours, in the next days, feel free to reach out to us, Klaus as well as me. You can find us on LinkedIn. You had our information actually on slide 1. Feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help with any type of question on that context, or we connect you with somebody who can. Any last words from you, Klaus?
Well, are the slides available for everyone, or how are they available? So you send them around, okay, and the email address is on there. So then I would say, yeah, thank you as well from my side. So it was really funny, and I really appreciate that we have 30 people already in the call. Even if we are over time, that means something might be interesting from that what we're talking about. So again, I love your enthusiasm.
Yeah, many thanks. Absolutely, enjoy the time. Have a good break. I think it's not too early to wish you some good holidays and a good break. And hopefully see you soon. Have a good time, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Soon. Bye-bye.